Some bombshell news here. Despite Elon Musk's best efforts to quite literally buy a state Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin, the liberal judge, Susan Crawford, has defeated Trump hanger-on Brad Schimmel in a race that commanded the attention of the entire nation. This race was crucial for two reasons. First, it keeps the liberal bloc in the majority on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. That means that the fair maps that were finally instituted in the state will remain in place. And fair maps mean that Republicans cannot gerrymander themselves into power, which means that the people of Wisconsin are protected from, for example, extreme archaic laws like the 1849 abortion ban, which Republicans would have immediately enacted had they gotten the chance to retake control. The downstream effects of Brad Schimmel winning this race would have been cataclysmic, and so at least for now, the very concept of democracy has been staved in the state of Wisconsin. But there's an equally important implication here. Elon Musk had been using this race as a test case, wherein he dumps millions and millions of dollars into the state, including in the form of literal million-dollar checks to bribe voters to participate in the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, knowing full well that if this strategy worked, he would export it to the rest of the country. He already did it in the presidential election, but he's now trying to learn whether or not he can do it in every state across the country. Wisconsin was the proving ground for him. And at this point, Republicans were all but admitting it. This was Trump's transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, just days ago on stage alongside Elon Musk at his rally in the state of Wisconsin.
Unacceptable in this great state. And we have Brad Schimmel, who believes that the law should treat everyone the same. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, he's a fair man who's going to impose the law in a way that treats everyone equally, which is what we want as conservatives. And so what you all can do, by the way, are you all going to vote, or have you voted? You guys all voted? Okay. You look like a pretty lively group, so I imagine all of you at least have 5 friends. Maybe 10. Get your 5 or 10 friends to the ballot box on Tuesday. And if all of you do that, you get your friends to the ballot box, because this is a low voter turnout election. Bring your friends, bring your family, and if you all turn out on Tuesday with your friends, we are going to win in Wisconsin and send a message to the radical left. Don't mess with Trump, don't mess with Doge, don't mess with Elon, and don't mess with Wisconsin. Let's get it done, everybody. God bless.
Did you catch what he said at the end? Send a message to the left not to mess with Elon. He framed this race as a way for the left not to mess with Elon Musk, who Duffy and the rest of the GOP know full well is their human wallet in every election moving forward. The reason that they're so protective of Elon is they want their meal ticket, but they had to make sure that the appetizer, meaning this race right here, was a success first. Tonight we learned that there are limits to how eager Americans are to allow one billionaire to effectively buy every single governmental seat in the United States of America. Now, I'm under no delusions that this means that Elon Musk won't continue to dump money into races across the country, but let's be clear about what it means. It means that his money is absolutely no guarantee that Republicans will win. It means that the people have shown that our voices have a bigger impact than his wallet. It means that there are very clearly limits to his outsized influence. But most importantly, it means that the momentum as we head toward 2026 is squarely on the left. If we could win a race in which the richest man in the world just dumped in tens of millions of dollars, a race where the sitting president of the United States used the bully pulpit to promote the conservative candidate Brad Schimmel, a race where Republican lawmakers and senators showed up in the state to rally their voters, go online to rally their voters, if we could win despite all of their influence and power and money, then think about what that means for 2026 more broadly. What's heartening, especially at a moment where there's hardly anything that should give us hope, is that even with the right-wing media machine humming along, even with the massive asymmetry in the amount of money that the right has over the left, even with the GOP's reckless, relentless pursuit of power and the abuses of our government, the fact that the left overcame all of those forces and showed up and won means that maybe the situation isn't as futile as we might think. Maybe our efforts to stay engaged matter. Maybe talking to our friends and families and neighbors and coworkers about the abuses occurring at the hands of these despots in government has an impact. This is why I push for it on a daily basis. I hope that what you just saw in Wisconsin reaffirms your commitment to stay engaged, because it means something. And by the way, I should note that because of the people in Wisconsin turning out, this is the justice they'll have representing them now. What should voters know about you? Because we are going to see more attacks because, look, when you have somebody like Elon funding these campaigns, that means that there is just a bottomless pit of money to pull from. We saw that in the Trump campaign, where that really benefited him to a huge degree. And so what do you want to take the opportunity to say to voters whose perception of you is going to be colored by the ads that are going to be put out by these partisan interests?
Yeah. Well, I want them to know that I'm somebody who brings common sense, justice. I have always viewed the law and our constitutions as, tools to protect people's rights. And I want to protect the rights of all Wisconsinites. I grew up in Chippewa Falls. It was a small town in Wisconsin, and worked hard. My family went through some tough times when I was a kid. I financed my own college education as a result. And I learned values like hard work and honesty and watching out for people. And that's the kind of person I've always been. And it is how I've always tried to use my experience and my legal skills. I started out as a prosecutor and always, was focused on making sure that people were held accountable when they'd harmed our community, that corporations likewise are held accountable when they do harms, and that crime victims have a voice in the process. Then I was in private practice for several years and represented Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin and their doctors to make sure that women could have access to reproductive health care services. At that time we had a very far to the right governor in Wisconsin and a lockup of Republicans in both houses of our legislature, and they were doing everything they can. Of course, this was before Roe versus Wade was overturned, but they were doing all they could to restrict the ability of doctors to provide healthcare services to women. So we fought back on that. And, I was in court fighting for public school teachers when their rights in the workplace were taken away, and worked hard to protect the voting rights of Wisconsinites, to make sure that every eligible voter in Wisconsin is able to cast their ballot. So I've had a lot of experience fighting for the fundamental rights of people in this state. And I want them to know that I'm going to keep doing that on the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
A very small reminder that we can still have nice things. And to that point, this is what the voters of Wisconsin narrowly avoided. Can you give a little background into what voters should know about Brad Schimel?
Yeah. Well, when he was Republican Attorney General in Wisconsin, he had an agenda of pursuing right-wing causes at the expense of Wisconsinites and public safety. So he left a backlog of over 6,000 sexual assault kits untested in Wisconsin for over 2 years. These are the kits that can be tested for DNA to determine who the perpetrators of those crimes are. And he only got 9 of them tested in 2 years out of over 6,000. And then he lied about it and said that, first of all, he said there wasn't a backlog. Well, he was caught out in that. And then he said that there were hundreds tested, and it turned out to be only 9. And then, it became an issue in his election campaign to try to get reelected as Attorney General. And somehow he found the resources to get thousands of them tested in the last 6 months of his term of office. But, Wisconsinites didn't buy that, and they sent him home. He also was sitting on his hands while the opioid epidemic was raging in Wisconsin. People were dying of overdoses. Families were being destroyed. And most states in the country were joining a national lawsuit to hold those opioid manufacturers accountable for that kind of harm. And not Brad Schimel. He was standing by doing nothing, and at the same time was taking thousands of dollars of campaign contributions from the pharmaceutical industry. So again, follow the money. And he is doing it again with Elon Musk. And he actually, if you kind of follow the timeline here, Brad Schimel was out at the inauguration in DC for about a week in January, attending these high-ticket black tie galas by groups like Turning Point USA. And then he comes back, and a day or two later, literally a couple of days later, Elon Musk is tweeting about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, saying, vote for the Republican. And then a month later, he's dumping millions of dollars.
All of which is to say, at least for today, it was people over money. Musk tried to buy our elections and he failed in the face of regular Americans who decided that our country isn't for sale. My message to you all is to take to heart the lesson that we learned from this election, which is that us being involved, us being engaged, us talking to our friends and family and neighbors matters. If the bank account of the richest person on earth cannot overcome that, then nothing can. We will win and we can win moving forward, but we have to want it. Today we wanted it, and at least for now, our country is a little bit stronger as the result